Ladies and gentlemen, my name is John Todora. I am your host today, the What's on Sports podcast, and I do want to remind you we do have a sponsor, and I like to mention it throughout the show because it's an opportunity for you to really make some cash, change your life maybe. The sponsor is called sportstradingsystems.com. It's sportstradingsystems.com. It's on the top of our video screen here if you guys are watching at home. You can go to sportstradingsystems.com, learn to trade sports just like other people trade stocks. There's tons of great information over there, free information on the website. Go over and check it out today, and sign up. And I got a special deal for you. For those of you that are watching at home and are thinking, I would love to try sports trading systems. I've heard about it. I've heard about their score metrics for basketball systems, which are giving back returns of over 70% so far this year. You can go over there today, and if you use the promo code WINNING when you check out, you'll get $300 off your offer today. $300 off by going over and checking it out today. Go to sportstradingsystems.com. Use the promo code WINNING when you check out. All right. It's been a great show so far, mainly because I got to get some of that stuff off my chest. But I can't do the show alone. As much as I love doing it alone, I love to bring on people that know a little more than I do. And today we're going to do that. Joining us from our website, whatsonsports.com, Mr. Lance Fernandez is in the building. Lance, how are you, buddy?
Hello, John. Hope you were able to catch some sleep after that epic Super Wildcard Weekend that we've had.
You know, I got to be honest. I slept like a baby on Saturday. Last night was tough after watching that game. There were moments, Lance, when I was going to turn the TV off. I was going to do it. I'm turning the TV off. I'm not going to watch any more of this. And then Pittsburgh would come back a little bit, and I'd be like, all right, I'll watch. I don't want to miss it if it's a huge. And then I would turn it off, and somehow they roped me into watching the whole damn game. So, yes, and then I couldn't sleep afterwards. So, yes, you're right. I did not sleep super great. Thanks for bringing it up. Today, we're going to talk about some really good stuff. Lance has been doing some in-depth research about what's next for these teams. Now, I know it's very fresh for some of you fans out there. Still, whether you're a Steelers fan or a Bears fan, your season's over. It's over. But we can still talk about what's next. That's the best part about football. So what's next is what we're going to talk about. Lance Fernandez in the building today, and today we're going to talk about each team. We'll break them down one at a time. We just had a long conversation about the Browns and the Steelers. What's next for the Steelers?
Okay, next for the Steelers, just like you've mentioned earlier, Ben Roethlisberger will be in the cap for $40 million. So if he decides to come back, that would be a big hit to the cap because the salary cap for next season might dip, if not stay the same. So that would still be a big percentage of their salary going into the 2021 season. So that would be the biggest question that they have to face coming into next season, because that would be a big amount to be able to work with. Yeah. If they will be able to free it up, they will be able to pick more players to bolster, especially their offensive line that has been pressured so much by the Browns in the Super Wildcard Weekend. So aside from Ben Roethlisberger, I guess they have to tinker some of their players in that O-line. And it's also fascinating that come 2021, come next season, one of their stalwarts in the O-line, Alejandro Villanueva, will be a free agent. So they have to decide on him as well if they are to extend him or not, because he has been a vital cog in defending the quarterback for the Steelers.
Yeah, look, Venezuela is a fantastic left tackle when it comes to pass protection. He has not been good against the run. That entire left side with Feeler and Venezuela together have been really bad against the run. It's impossible for them to run off the right side. It's almost impossible for them to run off the left side. It's almost impossible for them to run off the right side as well. That offensive line needs a tremendous amount of work, whether it's new coaching, new players. I think it's all across the board. That team's in a tremendous amount of trouble, in my opinion. They're getting older in places that they shouldn't, and they're getting worse in places that they shouldn't. And like I said before, I think the best thing for them to do is to move on from Ben Roethlisberger. And like I said, painful as a Steeler fan. Move on from Ben, see what you can put together. Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. Phillip Rivers signed a one-year contract, actually with a one-year extension that the team had the option for. What do you think the Colts are going to do?
So just like the Steelers, quarterback will be the biggest concern for the Colts coming into the offseason. Will Philip Rivers continue to play? Will he come back, or will he eventually retire? Because he is already up in terms of age, and we all know that father time cannot be defeated, especially in sports. So he
Yeah.
still has shown that he has something left in the tank, but he did come up short against the Bills. So we have to highlight that. He was able to make the long throws, but he was not able to connect with his receivers down the field. And I guess it would be time for the Colts to find another quarterback other than Jacoby Brissett, because if they are going to hang their hopes on Brissett alone, then they are hanging their hopes short enough, because Brissett may have what it takes to be a starting quarterback, but he's not at the same level as Philip Rivers. So rumor has it that Matthew Stafford might be going to the Colts. So there might be some conversations going on in this offseason that if Matthew Stafford eventually thinks that he has done enough for the Detroit Lions, then he might go into the Indianapolis Colts and continue his career until he walks off into the sunset.
Yeah, I think it's such a tough position to be in if you're somebody who's like the Colts, or even if you're like the Steelers. You're not going to get an opportunity to draft a quarterback that you can build around. And the benefits of drafting a quarterback that you can build around is that you get cheap labor for 5 years, cheap compared to what the salary cap would be for a really good franchise quarterback. So you don't have that opportunity. You're not going to get a shot at a quarterback when you draft where the Colts are going to draft, or where the Steelers are going to draft in the 20s. So it's going to be very interesting. I didn't think that Rivers played as bad as Ben played yesterday. I thought he played okay. He is a guy that you can build around, I think, in my opinion, because he brings that Philip Rivers moxie to the team. So he definitely is somebody that you can build around. But it's a tough situation for somebody like Indianapolis. We're talking about quarterbacks, and I want to go into the other division right now, and I want to talk about the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears were only 8-8, but they had a very good run with Trubisky. So without Trubisky, they were just a really subpar team. With Trubisky, they were a very good team. At least, good enough to get to 8-8 and good enough to stay in the playoffs. Where do you think happens to the Chicago Bears next?
Well, they will have to take a deep evaluation with what they have at quarterback. As we all know, it's a cliche. It's the most important position in the NFL. And Mitchell Trubisky will bring them somewhere, but not maybe to the promised land. As we all know, they have reached the playoffs, but they performed a dud, which is a 9-point outing against the New Orleans Saints, wherein they scored in the very last play offensively. If not for that, they have scored only 3. So that's just a special team score. So sadly for Trubisky, his performance will forever be linked to that player drafted 8 spots after him, Patrick Mahomes. So that would be always a high bar for comparison for him.
And Deshaun Watson.
And Deshaun Watson as well. Yeah, you're right.
All the same draft.
So with those bars of comparison, where do you put Mitchell Trubisky? How do you make a fair assessment of him? Will the Bears be happy that they have reached the wild card stage with a quarterback like Trubisky when they know that he is not the best quarterback of their class? So have they learned their lesson with this cautionary tale? And if they do, are they going quarterback not next season, but maybe in 2022? Because they will be getting a high draft pick in the first round right now. So all of the better quarterbacks might be gone once they have their selection. Not to mention that it will also be Trubisky's last year next season. And then they would also have to deal with the impending free agency of Allen Robinson, their wide receiver. And more importantly, Cordell Patterson as well. So those are a lot of questions revolving around the front office of the Chicago Bears coming into 2021.
I think the biggest thing for Trubisky is that he's always going to be compared to those guys that he was drafted with. And it's always going to be a moment where everybody, myself included, I'm a draft nick. I was watching the draft, and I believe the Bears, if my memory serves correct, the Bears were picking 4th that year. And a lot of people thought they were going to go quarterback. A lot of people thought they were going to go Deshaun Watson, actually. And they literally said Mitchell Trubisky, and everybody was like, who? because Trubisky was late first round, early second round, and the Bears took him fourth, thinking they knew something that everybody else didn't know, and it proved out that they didn't know anything. And it's going to be it's a tough to wash that away. Let's talk about the Tennessee Titans. Now, this is one of my favorite teams all year long. I love the way Tennessee plays. I didn't think their defense was as good as it needed to be, but I love their offense. Old school, smashed mouth football, decent quarterback who could run the ball. Derrick Henry's obviously a beast. What's in the future for the Tennessee Titans?
Okay, so before we go any further, so Mitchell Trubisky was drafted second in the 2017 draft, just to clarify.
Wow, second.
So
Wow,
that high.
worse.
Anyway, so going back, just by the game against the Ravens alone, we now know that the heart and soul of the Titans offense, without question, is Derrick Henry. He only had 40 in that game. And where did that bring the Titans? Nowhere. They had a 10-point lead, squandered it. Eventually, the Ravens win in what eventually ended up being a running game because both sides would prefer the run. And then Lamar Jackson broke into a big run, scored a touchdown. And when you match the Ravens with their strengths, which is the run, more chances are you're going to lose. So with that assessment alone, I guess the best way to go for the Titans for 2021, if they can, is to add weapons on the receiving core. They do have an A.J. Brown, they do have a Jonnu Smith, but they would need someone else that can create separation, create distance from from defenders, especially on one-on-one man-to-man coverages. That's something that they need, especially if something like this happens again. If Henry performs under par, at least they're not crippled in terms of their offense. If their play action is killed because Henry's not doing well, they can still have that deep option threat down the field. And of course, for 2021, they also have to think of Jadeveon Clowney's impending free agency. They also have to think of Corey Davis's impending free agency and Daquan Jones' impending free agency.
Yeah, I look at the Titans yesterday, and I would disagree with one thing. I thought the Titans could move the ball against the Ravens through the air. For some reason, they stopped. There seemed to be a fear of I don't know, turning the ball over. To me, you're right. You get a 10-point lead. You think, well, let's just hang on to this lead and not really try to push it. And I think that they could have. I think they could have pushed it really tried to push it to the point where they could have blown the Ravens out. There was that moment where it was like, oh man, if you can turn the Ravens into a one-dimensional team where they feel like they have to throw the ball, then I think you're in a much better situation than you are. But I think that they got afraid. I think they got scared. I think they puckered up. Bad coaching yesterday by the Titans. Bad coaching. You let the Ravens stay in the game close enough to actually play their own game, which is not something that we wanted. It looks like maybe I lost Lance. Let's talk about the Washington football team. Now, to me, this team actually shocked me. They started off the year with Dwayne Haskins. He was the starter. Then they moved over to Kyle Allen. He was the starter for a minute. Then they moved over to Alex Smith, who actually surprised all of us by playing really, really well. They finished the year with Taylor Heineke as their quarterback. And to me, it was one of those things where you're just like, wow, man, Taylor Heineke, how's this going to work out for everybody? And it ends up not working out that bad, actually. Washington played pretty well. So where does that leave Washington going forward? I think for me, I like what Washington's building there. I think Ron Rivera is the perfect coach to be a part of that culture. I think that they got a running game. I think they're putting themselves together to be an NFL caliber team. They can rush 4 passers. They obviously, I think they need a little help in their back end. So I'm looking at secondary help. I'm looking at a long-term solution to quarterback. I would like to see them find something like that. And to continue to put weapons around whoever that quarterback is, to me, is super, super important. But one of the most interesting teams this year, Lance, I see you're back with us. One of the most interesting teams this year was the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, they started off like the best team in the NFL. Russell Wilson was going to be MVP. This was going to be the best team in the NFL. People were talking about them being undefeated. Right around game 5, reality kicks in, and this team becomes a good team, but not a great team, and exposed very badly in that LA game. What's next for the Seattle Seahawks?
So, frankly, the Los Angeles Rams, honest assessment, won both battles in the trenches. They won both the defensive line battle and the offensive line battle. I mean, 39-year-old Andrew Whitworth just shut down the pass rush of the Seattle Seahawks. And then on the other end, the likes of Aaron Donald and his front four were continuing to get pressure from scrimmage, that Russell Wilson wasn't comfortable throwing the ball all day because somebody's already in his face once the ball is snapped. So I guess that's the main concern for the Seahawks. I guess it's tinkering with the trenches. They do have good linemen, but towards the end of the season, it's just faltered. It just all faltered, and then eventually, this lineup that played during the wild card hasn't played that much during the entire regular season. So that could be a concern. Either they don't have, they can do better in terms of talent, or probably having a training camp or off-season camp would help them have more cohesion in the O-line. So those are the questions that they have to face coming into next season.
Yeah, look, I think that defense has to be addressed. You know, the defense was putrid for the first 8 games. The back half of the season, the defense played a lot better because the pass rush played better. But when you run into a good offensive line that can actually stop the pass rush or hold back the pass rush, you see the chinks in the armor. You see a defense that can't stop Cam Akers. You see a defense that couldn't stop Jared Goff with a broken thumb. I mean, they were exposed in a big way to me yesterday. It's a shame to see Seattle go, but I think that team is not as good as their 12-4 record. I've been saying that all year long. I stick to that. I think it's the same answer no matter which way you look at it. Russell Wilson can't be the guy who cooks. Russell Wilson is a fantastic complementary piece as a leader to a team, as a guy who can make plays with his legs, as a guy who can hit those passes when he needs to hit them. But he can't be the guy who stands back there and just chucks the ball 65 times a game. And to be clear, I don't think there's any NFL quarterback that can do that. I think every team needs some balance. Even your Patrick Mahomes plays much better when he's got a run game. Or your Aaron Rodgers plays much better when he's got a run game behind him. So I think Seattle needs to fix that offensive line. They need to become more balanced, and they got to fix that defense. Got to fix it.